Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today it's Monday and it's July the 25th, 2022. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative. And if you're a returning viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets. So you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from. And I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video. And don't forget to subscribe. And our story today takes us to the town of Kenley here in North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, Kenley's entire police force resigned on the same day. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. Well, my focus today is on the town of Kenley, a very small town located between Raleigh and Charlotte. It's a little bit closer to Durham, but it's in the vicinity of Durham and Charlotte in that area. And compared to other areas, it's rather small. It has a population density of approximately 970 square miles. And as I was researching information for this town, I saw an overview that described the town as friendly Kenley. Well, based on what I've been able to find out, it does seem that friendly Kenley may have a few things hidden behind that friendly appearance. And that's because the entire police force and full-time employees resigned last week, all at the same time. And you have to admit, this is rather unusual behavior for individuals who are filling public office. So I decided to do some research, and I decided to make this my video of the week. So I want to share with you what has been published about this story so far, but I also want to encourage you to stick with me until the end, because there seems to be an elephant in the room, and I'll try to break it down for you right here in this video. As you could imagine, this story has made international news, and everybody's got their eyes on Kenley and wondering just what in the world is going on in that small town. And as I already mentioned last week, we all found out that all the full-time people, which means all of the police force and the two full-time civilian employees, they all resigned all at once. Now, they claim that the reason that they were resigning is because they find it impossible to continue working in a hostile environment. They say this hostile environment was created by the recently hired town manager, and keep in mind she's only been there for about 6 weeks. But I have a totally different perspective, which I plan to break down in a few minutes. But before we go further, let's look back by a few years at Kenley and explore what has been now documented as part of their history. Now, it was around September of 2019 when we found out that the Kenley Police Department was facing a criminal investigation. We learned at that time it was started as a major internal affairs investigation which was being conducted by the Elizabeth City Police Department, and that progressed on to them being investigated by the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, and then they were also being investigated by the FBI. One of the city councilmen had posted a message acknowledging the investigation and indicating the problems at hand included allegations such as falsifying police reports and illegal searches. Now, he ended that message by saying, hopefully, this investigation will exonerate our officers and not result in another embarrassment for our town. Now, that was in September, and by October, it was published that in one of the local newspapers, apparently the town manager had confirmed that one officer was placed on administrative leave, but that officer was never identified, and the circumstances surrounding his administrative action was never disclosed. And the final conclusion of that SBI and FBI findings were not made public. But I present that to say Kenley Police Department appears to have had some degree of internal management issues, and I say alleged, and this goes back to several years. So now let's move forward to a current situation. And Justine Jones, pictured here, was hired as the town manager on June the 2nd of this year. So she'd been in the job for just about 6 weeks. And let me say that Justine Jones was just not some unqualified reject picked up on the street corner. Reports say the town hired her because she was the best of the 30 candidates from a national search that applied for the position. So she didn't just come in off the street. She was qualified. And here's what I see. Take a good look at this picture. One black woman who was obviously qualified for the job, and probably very confident. And for a variety of reasons, the people who had probably been in their jobs way too long, and I have to say allegedly here, but most likely they didn't want her. But they did not have a say in the matter. So you know what they did? They set out to make her life a living hell. And I have to say allegedly. Well, you can call this my storytelling if you must, or you may say it's all based on my personal perspective. But take a look. This is what the town of Kenley's leadership team looks like. All white, and then walks in a woman of color, an African American woman who just happens to be the town manager, and it's her job to run the show, and they're just not having it, allegedly. So, as Justine Jones is still trying to understand the job and make small changes that are needed to move the organization forward, she's challenged on all corners, and I do believe she was at a disadvantage. And there goes that elephant in the room. They didn't want to work for her. The newest person enters the room, and before she could even get her feet wet, everybody's complaining about anything that she does, and then they get together in their informal meetings, and then they decide she's got to go. So last weekend, the police chief wrote in a public Facebook post that he and all of his deputies, I believe there are 5 of them total, as well as Sharon Evans and Christine Thomas, who is the town clerk and the utility clerk, he wrote that all had submitted their 2-week resignation, citing they were leaving because the town manager had created a hostile work environment and that they were done. But I also read another communication in which he stated that if she leaves, he wouldn't mind staying. Is this a child or is this an adult? This is just laughable. So now you have the safety of the community at risk because there's not going to be any police. There's no town clerk, so ongoing coordination and paperwork is going to stop. And the utility clerk is also going to be gone, so the ongoing knowledge and the communication that's needed to make sure that the utility bills continue to come, utility money continues to come in, that utility services continue to be coordinated, that's going to be gone as well. And it seems to me this was all premeditated. It was all a plan. It was all a calculated plan to bring the town of Kenley to its knees. Seems like what they were doing. They wanted attention. Now, in my opinion, I don't believe they were ever planning on leaving. It seems to me they had another intention, and their intention was to embarrass Justine Jones and try to get her to run her out of the job because they know they can't fire her. She was just hired. They can't fire her, okay? In fact, they probably don't have a role in the hiring and firing, but their plan was to embarrass her, make this a public spectacle, and make it so difficult for her to continue that she'll decide to walk away from the job. That's my opinion, allegedly. You know, I am a woman of a certain age, and this is all flashback for me because I too have been a Justine Jones. Yes, she's not the only one. I too have been a Justine Jones, being the only person of color in a department, and people who my subordinates would go out of their way to make my life a living hell. Why? Because they didn't want to work for me, and nothing I did was good enough. People would discredit and try to devalue your knowledge, your education, your experience, and most of all, your leadership skills, just because of who you are. I can empathize with what Justine Jones is going through right now because I have lived experiences which at times can be too painful for me to discuss. But I wonder if the public realizes that when individuals, especially individuals of other groups, begin to say out loud, especially when you're new to the organization, you're just getting your feet in the door, you're just getting your feet wet, and they begin to say things openly that you are creating a hostile environment and you're not doing anything different than what anybody else would do as a manager. You're just trying to do your job. The minute they're beginning to talk about you are creating a hostile work environment, and they're unwilling to explain out loud and in the open exactly what's so hostile about what you were doing. They would discuss it behind closed door, but they're not really willing to discuss it openly. It's really a code that many of us understand too well. And along with that, people begin to make the public aware that at some point in her career, Justine Jones had filed a discrimination lawsuit against another agency because she felt her rights had been violated. And my response is, so what? She has a right to do it. If she felt she was being violated, that's her right. She had a right to complain, to submit a complaint. But that should put you all on notice that if you don't treat her right, she did it once and she just might do it again. I saw this headline from the New York Post and it says, entire police force quits in protest over progressive town manager. And I was thinking the very same thing. You have this group of people who've been stagnated for so long. They've been doing exactly what they want to do, and they're probably broken too. It's probably a mess in there that she came in and she started cleaning things up. And it's like, no, 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 no. She's not going to do that because one, they really didn't want her for the job, and now she's making change and they don't like it. So what they do, they create this dramatic effect and they get the whole world involved. But what it kind of makes them look rather silly, especially the police force. There are police departments out there with real life issues, and you got some nerve to be quitting just because you feel that you don't want to work for the town manager. Just awfully silly. I hope they let them go. Maybe it's time for new blood in the town of Kenley. I plan to make this a two-part series video simply because there's so much to be covered. We found out a few days ago that the council, or the leadership body was holding meetings behind doors to come to a resolution. We saw a lot of people who came out to the meetings. They weren't allowed to participate. But here's my thing. Why are you having closed-door sessions? The chief of police made this very public. He put it on Facebook. He put it on Facebook, and she's been identified and she's been dragged through the mud. And now the world is watching, and we want to see what's going on behind closed doors. We want to see what's going on in Kenley. But my take is this. They put in their resignation, let them go. Let them go, because life would never, never be the same. And Justine Jones would not be able to do her job effectively. But the key now is that the world is watching. The world is watching how Justine Jones is being treated as the town manager in Kenley. Well, people are watching, and people are going to continue to have an opinion about it because you guys made it public. But those meetings need to be open. The public needs to be able to see and hear what's being talked about. There should be no secrets whatsoever. So there's a lot more to cover, and I'm going to stop at this point, but I'll come back to it with a part 2 within the next few days. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like this one, that's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.